This is the part 2 of the houses in the birth chart. Till now, I have covered from 1st to 6th house. If you want to watch the video, then link would be in the description. Moving on to the 7th house. This is the house of partnerships, the most important being marriage. Until this house, the focus was on the individual with this house. The focus now shifts from self to the other. This house is just opposite the ascendant. First house is self and seventh house is partner. Together they complement each other and make a whole, like yin and yang. So seventh house in astrology represents what you're looking for. Everything related to marriage is governed by this house. Your sense of attraction to opposite sex, desire to have a partner, need to commit, sexual fantasies, passion, possessiveness, level of understanding are all governed by the position of planets in seventh house. This house also relates to your ability to have children. Seventh house also relates to problem and disinterest in carnal fulfillment, illnesses of reproductive system, impotence, and progeny problems. The reason why you indulge in a partnership is also apparent in seventh house. Is it for love, money, social pressure, practical reasons, or to fill the void in your life? The sense of cooperation and purpose is important to the seventh house. By cooperating and adjusting, we seek to realize our purpose, accomplish something like happiness, success, profit, and satisfaction. All sorts of partnerships come under the domain of seventh house, not just marriage. These include business partnership, relationship with clients, contracts, negotiations, agreements, and so on. The kind of relationship share with your co-founder is governed by this house, who gets a bigger slice in the profit is also ruled by 7th house in Vedic astrology. Your relationship with everyone you enter into contract with is also governed by the 7th house in the horoscope. Whether all these partnerships enrich your lives or cause your downfall is also assessed by the planet's position in 7th house. 7th house also deals with the darker side of the relationships and the partnerships we form. Legal battles, divorce, quarrels, enmity, and fines also fall under the domain of this house. Your reaction to the adversities influence your relationship with the person, and on more global level, in astrology, it will lead to wars. Known as the Kalatra Bhav in Vedic astrology, it governs the several body parts, including kidneys and lower back. Moving on to the 8th house. Along with the 6th and 12th, 8th house is also considered to be malefic. 8th house in Vedic astrology rules over death, longevity, and sudden events. It has a direct impact upon one's lifespan and nature of death. It could be natural, peaceful, accident by water or fire, suicide, violent, or due to chronic illnesses. 8th house also relates to wealth, everything from sudden gains, losses, share of profit, and legacies to inheritance and insurance come under the sphere of 8th house in astrology. It is also called the house of transformation and mysteries. It can bring depression, defame, delay, dissatisfaction, and defeat. It also represents the dark side of life, such as bad karmas and hidden sources. When 8th house lord or planets in the 8th house are afflicted, it can cause to affect the longevity of a person, cause chronic illness, miseries, fear, lack of mental peace, monetary issues, criminal tendencies, imprisonment, punishment, sexual problems, addictions, bad habits, deformities, loss of loved ones, death, and so on. 8th house also represents your reproductive organs and ability, your sense of physical attraction, and also refers to your partner's finance. On positive sides, when 8th house in horoscope is positive and strong, it can lead to a lot of positive outcomes. Native may have long life and is likely to topple enemies in opposition. It also gives higher learning of metaphysical realms such as psychic abilities. Native may have a strong intuition and may be well versed in occult fields such as astrology and meditation. Such people are also masters of fields such as psychology, science, mathematics, and paranormal studies. 8th house is also called the Ayu Bhava in Vedic astrology. Body part it governs include reproductive organ and colon area. It also refers to hidden things and secrecy, research, mines, minerals, and archaeology. 8th house essentially is considered difficult because it is the house of transformations. It makes the person withdraw from material pleasures by inflicting miseries by ultimate aim is salvation and spiritual liberation. It leads to transformation of the soul by purifying it and eradicating bad karma. The process, nonetheless, is agonizing but rewarding. We can also understand transformation in the context that eighth house shows biggest changes that happen in one's life, which are life changing in nature. Moving on to the ninth house, also called the Dharma Bhava in astrology. Ninth house represents one's religious instincts, dharma, uprightness, good karma, ethics, higher learning and values, and spiritual inclination. This shows one's religious beliefs, whether the person believes in religion or not. If the person would stick to the conservative religious values or question them, ninth house in Vedic astrology also believes a philosophical bent of mind. It gives one an inclination towards charity and deeds. This is also the house of luck. It determines whether the person would favor you or not, if you would be able to sidestep troubles without much effort or not. It is the karka of higher education. The strong ninth house is often found in the horoscope of prominent writers. Ninth house represent the journey towards the unknown, to discover what is beyond and above us. The understanding of higher realms occur either through higher learning and education, in the form of studying psychology, philosophy, or through spirituality. How strong is the ninth house in horoscope also determines whether the person would treat towards spiritual liberation or not. Ninth house stands for father, what kind of relationship you share with him, how lucky you are for him or he is for you, and also their financial status. Along with father, it also signifies your mentor and teacher. Ninth house also tells you about relationship with brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Ninth house is a strong indicator of foreign travel too. Long distance journeys, whether they would be fruitful or not, also comes under the realm of ninth house. Its assessment also determines whether you can take a pilgrimage. Invention, research, and exploration also fall in the ninth house. The natural signification, which have which also relates to good luck, fortune, wealth, higher learning, wisdom, spirituality, body parts associated with ninth house are buttocks and the back of thighs. The way of strength of the thigh determines whether you reach the finish line first. The strength of your teachings and philosophy of life determines whether you would learn the higher truth and be one with God or not. Moving on to the next house, this is a karma bhava in Vedic astrology, relating to work you do and the profession you're involved in. Your area of occupation is defined by the planetary placement in this house. This is essentially the house of career. A thorough analysis of the 10th house in Vedic astrology answers some key questions such as what would be your line of work, whether you would be successful, which career mistakes you could make, whether you would be an employer or an employee, and so on. Whether you are in a position of authority and are at service of others also comes under 10th house realm. Your connection with people of high rank positions and power is also ruled by 10th house. It also governs your earning capabilities. 10th house in astrology is the degree of the ecliptic that was the highest at the time and place of birth. And that is what represents your highest achievements and the desire to achieve heights. It is about power, prestige, social status, financial strength, achievements, recognition, respect, and position. Whether you become a popular face and earn fame, also governed by the 10th house. It represents the bigger picture, your ultimate career goals and professional endeavors to make you reach there. It is also the Artha house, which means economy. So your financial prosperity and material strength also comes under 10th house. It also defines your professional outlook, whether you are a hard worker, ambitious, and a determined person, or a lazy lad disinterested in career matters, is also defined from 10th house. It's not just about your vocation, it's also about your avocation. The reason why you choose a particular field is also determined by studying 10th house in horoscope. Is it financial, emotional, or by hobby? The cream of the society and people in power also fall under the terrain of 10th house. The integrity, values, status, and honor of the nation, along with its reputation, among others, also governed by the 10th house. It specifically relates to the commercial, political, and employment industry. Moving on to the next house. 11th house in Vedic astrology is considered an auspicious house and also called Labh house. Labh means gains, and 11th house is a strong indicator of income and gains. It represents prosperity, sudden profits, wealth, abundance, and income. Your aspiration and desires and their fulfillment comes under the 11th house. 11th house is fifth from the 7th house, which represents our desires, and thus it refers to fulfillment or defiance of the desires, which is why it is called the house of gains. What occupies in this house governs what could be your sources of income. How would you mostly earn your wealth? Not necessarily your profession, it explores other means such as foreign sources, inheritance, speculation, and so on. 11th house in astrology also represents your social sphere, people who are likely to realize your desire with and who help you realize your dream are governed by 11th house. It is also called the house of friendship. Whether you make friends easily or take your time, whether you prefer seclusion or a social butterfly. What kind of people do you make friendship with? Whether these friendships turn out to be fruitful or not are few questions that 11th house answers. 11th house in astrology also governs the group and committees you participate in and the relationship you share with friends and siblings. 11th house also rules your interest in social activities and matters. Your close acquaintance and well wishers observed by this house. Whether you get financial assistance and gains from associations also determined by this house. 11th house also shows your relationship with your paternal uncle. It is also known as Batak Bhav. Batak means obstruction. Some of our desires are auspicious in nature, while fulfillment of some can be destructive. The placement and the association of planets in the 11th house in the horoscope defines whether you face obstacles in life or remove them. Positive placement indicates you would go through a lot of opportunities with some obstacles, and you will be able to topple them. The body parts this house governs includes ankles and calf. Moving on to the final house. The first house represents the beginning, the birth, and the 12th house in Vedic astrology, being the last house, completes the life cycle and represents the endings. It stands for seclusion, solitude, and emancipation. This is the house of detachments. Whatever you have to detach from is represented by 12th house in horoscope, your materialistic tendencies, source of expenses, and so on. When afflicted, this house can lead to jail sentence, hospitalization, sleeplessness, separation, addictions, secret enemies, suspicion, inferiority complex, and the loss of near and dear ones. Affliction of this house can cause mental weakness too, susceptibility, and unspiritual addictions such as intoxication, sex, enslavement, and so on. This house is about letting things go, but it does not necessarily mean negative. Being the last house, it represents what you have to renounce to move towards liberation. It stands for the time when you have to detach yourself from the material world and return to where you started, the purest form. It is very important house concerning spiritual liberation. 12th house in astrology represents moksha, when you're free from endless cycle of birth and death, miseries of material life. It represents the freedom of soul from the shackles of worldly attachments. This is a crucial house in the horoscope for monks, sages, and people striving towards illumination. It also governs places like ashrams, meditation centers, monasteries, places of worship, etc. Your capacity to relinquish everything to unite with the divine force is determined by the planetary position in 12th house. It plays a prominent role in activities that you indulge out of generosity. Actions without expectation relate to this house. The tendency to be giving, humble, and passionate is ruled by the 12th house. It merely suggests losing yourself to find God and be one with Him. 12th house in astrology gives detachment from people. The planets occupying this house represent such as parents, siblings, neighbors, friends, relatives. The detachment can be in any form of separation or death. 12th house also relates to bed comforts, so your sexual ability, desires, fulfillment, and sleeping tendencies fall under this house too. 12th house also represents detachment from the native place in the form of long distance travels to faraway places, foreign residency, travel abroad, trade with foreign cultures and people, import, export, international tourism, and business. It is also known as bhava in Vedic astrology and gives an insight into wasteful expenditures and spending habits. The body part it governs are feet.